know what I see here? I'm looking at a sector-wide approach because if you talk about inclusive business and you think about the amount of those excluded, it is mind-boggling. It tells you that truly we'll be looking at so many other sectors, and sometimes some of these people who are maybe in the villages and some even in the cities who are poor but yet don't have access to some facilities that can aid their businesses. Looking at the big picture now, what are those things you think you can put in place, or how can you draw them in to make it truly an all-inclusive business family?
Okay, I think the first and foremost is we need to bring them into the sector. Give them some form of an account, because don't forget that with financial services, we talk about accounts, payments, insurance, savings, credit, etc., etc. They don't need to be doing all at the same time, but at least start them in. Let them be able to move money in and out reliably, successfully, and on time. Okay, once we can do that, then they can build on the system and transact more on the system.
Sorry to cut you. You have to key in some of these financial sectors and some other agencies or sectors into this, because I had an experience with someone. I wanted him to have an account. He's an Okada rider. And in opening that account, I received more than 10 calls from him while he was there. First, they needed an ID. I provided he has that, and so many other things. They wanted a utility bill, and there's a man who lives, he has no home. I had to come in and stand as a guarantor, yet it took us almost a month before he could open that account. So those are some of the things you see that really can't help this kind of drive that you're trying to bring to the table.
No, to be honest with you, we're not asking them to open formal bank accounts. We're asking them to open digital wallets, virtual accounts. And to that effect, the CBN has actually produced a tiered KYC regulation. In other words, someone like that, all he needs is a name and a mobile phone number to have access to a virtual account. So
he doesn't use like your phone or my phone.
Yes, he doesn't need to. And that's the beauty about these things, that they don't need high-end smartphones. It's actually tiered and catered to the low end of the market with any type of feature phone. So we're not trying, it's not an elitist product. It's actually a product for the people at the bottom of the pyramid. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to understand these people. What are their needs? So this Okada rider, what does he spend money on? He doesn't watch DSTV because he doesn't even have a home, right? He doesn't have GoTV, and he doesn't pay utility bills. So we need to build products and services for these poor people to be able to use on such a platform. And we're still getting there.
Your department at the LBS, you must have done your research on this. What did you find out? Do you think it's feasible?
It's feasible if we want to innovate and disrupt. Seriously. It's one of those things where right now we're not climbing up the tree. We're still picking the easy, low-hanging fruit. We need to climb up the tree, because whether we like it or not, there is more people at the bottom of the pyramid than there are at the top. And until we begin to address the needs of those poor people, we're not even trying to create a vibrant digital financial services sector or solve financial inclusion. And there are different approaches depending on different products. So right now we think of financial services as a homogeneous product. It's not. Because what someone needs for payments is different from what someone needs for savings. It's different from what someone needs for insurance. And now also, let's look at ourselves. We're Nigerians, we're not exactly homogeneous either. We're diverse. We have ethnic issues. We have so we want to also understudy what does someone in the Northeast region need for payments versus someone in the Southeast? Because how do people innovate if they don't really know who they're innovating for? So what we are trying to do is, how can we provide some of the answers to private sector providers who already have these licenses? And then how can they use this information to create better products and services to serve the market needs?
Why do you think it is important for people down the ladder to be financially included? I know you talked about the cost sometimes being more than that of the average person. But aside that particular reason, what other benefit is there for them?
they now become, it's part of inclusion exclusion. So if we say there is no benefit fit for them, then we're actually admitting that it's good to have a portion of your society excluded from the society. Because in the same way where you're talking about access to credit, for example, right now we have credit rating agencies. Cash doesn't leave a footprint. So when you want to borrow money one day or the other, you don't have access to cash because nobody knows who you are. But today, with some form of digital record, you can leave a footprint of reliability, etc., etc. And then for the poor, then they can have access to lower or cheaper financial services.
Because I've been thinking, you know, we're talking about financial inclusion. My mind's been in my village, for instance, and how there is there's some local kind of banking amongst them. You know, there's the Ajo, and understand what I'm trying to say. So, are we also excluding that sort of system that they have also built for themselves?
No. So there are different types of there are different levels or categories when we talk about financial inclusion. We talk about the banked. We talk about the included other, which is people who are using microfinance bank, non-deposit money banks or community schemes, etc. And then we talk about the informal, which is the people like Ajo, etc. But yet there's still 40% that are totally excluded. So what we are trying
even from the local system?
Even from the local system, totally excluded. Because there's a company here in Lagos, Ifina. Every 2 years, they go out and do this research. So they're the ones that publish the data on financial inclusion rate and access to finance, etc. So they're still excluded. So what we're trying to say is that people like Ajo, those are fine. Because there's some form of discipline systems, contributory systems. We're not trying to replace them or say everybody must come into a formal bank. No, we're trying to say that, can you even go into some formal kind of scheme, a system that we can record and we can count, etc., etc. And then so that builds the economy, because you now begin to have, when we talk about banking, why don't you want to reduce interest rates, right? Interest rates are prohibitive right now. They tell you, cost of credit. How can we bring some of this back into a system and then spin it around so the aggregation pool increases?
Sounds interesting. We'd like to see how this plays out and possibly have you back in the days ahead. But thank you for coming on. Dr. Olayinka David-West is the Academic Director and Senior Fellow in Information System, Lagos Business School.